Welcome back. Well, the social isolation brought on by the pandemic has been challenging for most of us, but even more so for the elderly. While we're busy protecting vulnerable seniors from COVID-19, the lack of socialization has left many feeling lonelier than ever. So, here with some ways for seniors to stay social while staying safe is gerontological worker Amy Dupree. Amy, so wonderful to have you back on the show.
Thanks. I'm so happy to be back.
Amy, let's talk about loneliness among seniors because this obviously has been an issue pre-pandemic, but it has really, really risen during this pandemic. And it doesn't matter if a senior is living in long-term care home or independently. Can you give us a sense of how seniors are particularly impacted by the lack of socialization?
Yes, and we all know this is a big issue. You know, what was startling to me was pre-COVID, there was a Stats Canada figure that 1.4 million seniors are lonely. So now imagine what's happened during this time period. And I was struck by an article Maclean's ran in November 2020 that talked about what the impacts of all this physical isolation has been. And it's things like inactivity, which leads to becoming more frail, to becoming more depressed. And, loneliness in and of itself doesn't cause health problems. But the depression leads to issues like older adults neglecting healthy behaviors and actually engaging in unhealthy behaviors like neglecting medications or drinking or smoking more. So it's been tough on all of us, but certainly the older adults, we really see this in the necessary isolation that we've had.
When it comes to keeping seniors in our lives engaged, perhaps, the approach for some people has been, well, more chats, more, just more. And you say that that's not quite the way to look at it. So what is your suggestion about the right way to approach this?
Well, more is great, but one of the things I know is we're all stressed about time right now. And so add to that more the idea of meaningful activities, connection, and contribution. Those are the things that are really going to make a difference. Because, if you're just calling and asking, what did you have for breakfast? That, although that's better than nothing, that isn't really something that's going to engage the seniors in your life. So we want to look for engagement, and it's beneficial to all of us because it's just more fun to have those kind of conversations that are engaging and, have more meaning and contribution.
One way you suggest that seniors stay socialized while they're isolated is by recording their personal histories, which I adore this idea. So walk us through how seniors can do this safely and maybe where they get started.
Right. Well, the families can really help in this. And the idea here is you can do it on Zoom if you have the ability to do that, because it's easy to record on Zoom. You can do it on your iPhone, or you can just do it over the phone. So the questions that you can start with are, and there's lots of great suggestions, by the way, online, but here are some great ones that you see up here. I would add a couple more that I really like when you were growing up, what did you think you were going to do with your life? I love that question. Or if you could go live anywhere for a year, what would that look like? And the beauty of this is you're going to get to know your parent in a whole new way when you do this. And I'll tell you that one of the things we know is after our parents are gone, there are so many things we wish that we had asked them. And you don't have to turn this into a big, difficult project. You can do a couple of questions a week. Doesn't have to be that you do it all at once.
I actually did this with my grandfather before he passed away. This was a number of years ago, but we had even just his hearing wasn't great. So we had a little whiteboard where I would write down the question and he would write the answer back. So, and you actually did this with your own parents. So what was that experience like for you?
I loved it. And both my parents have been gone a long time now. And I have to tell you, I treasure those, those recordings. I actually filmed them doing it. And it was just wonderful at the time, but even better over time. And the only thing I can say is I wished I'd done more of it. So you'll never regret doing this. And I think this is one of the opportunities that COVID is giving us right now, is to step back a little bit and think about what matters most and how do we connect in these new ways.
Oh my gosh, it's so good. I've been doing some of this, just sort of writing notes and having those dinner chats with mom and dad and getting their history. It really is quite something. You also suggest sort of very similarly along the same lines that perhaps this is the time to ask seniors to maybe sort through those old photos of theirs. Why is this an activity that you suggest?
Well, I think almost all of us have boxes of photos that maybe don't even know who's in them because they're from previous generations. And this is an opportunity to have the older adults in your life go through them, write on them, let you know who they are, and tell the stories about these people. Again, remember, we're thinking connection and contribution. And imagine how much this could mean to the older adults in your life to be able to make that bridge to the future.
Mel and I talk a lot about how I think both of our mothers, one of their love languages is cooking, right? And that's true for many, many families. So how can we keep that sort of like energy for those who love cooking together in the before times going safely while we're physically apart?
Well, I love this idea about leading a family cooking class. So, lots in families have recipes that they want to pass down. That was my mom's favorite recipe. I want to make sure I have it. And if you have kids, this is a great idea to do with the grandkids, to do maybe again on Zoom or on FaceTime. If you can do this, lead a cooking class, have your parent work with your kids and show them these recipes, live. And then this can be also a way to lead into a family dinner together. So you can, segue it into not just doing the cooking class, but then everybody coming together and having a dinner and eating together virtually, of course.
So let's talk about, for the seniors that maybe don't have loved ones that they can engage with or children to engage with, what are the options for them to stay connected?
There's a wonderful program called Seniors Centers Without Walls, and it's across Canada in many communities. It's in BC, Saskatchewan, Ontario, Manitoba, Alberta. So this program is great because it is done on the phone, or again, you can do it virtually on video too. But you can connect, the older adult can connect, and they can take classes, they can learn new skills, they can do their brain games that they can play. There's lots of activities. And because it's virtual, you're not limited by where you live. So you just need to connect in your community with this program, Senior Centers Without Walls. And it's an amazing way to have, again, meaningful activities going on.
There are also a lot of phone support programs across the country. Can you tell us about some of those?
Well, I live in Toronto, and we have a great one here called Circle of Care, has one called Phone Pals. And there are equivalent programs in lots of the communities across Canada. And you can Google and look at phone connection with elderly as a way to find it. And these programs connect volunteers with older adults. And the idea is to actually make an ongoing connection. So they get to know the older adult. It's not just a one-time call. And there is matches around culture and language, amazing programs to help people have virtual connection with people they may never have met, but they have things in common with.
And I think to further that, there are ways that all of us, anybody watching who wants to try to connect with seniors from coast to coast, you say that we can volunteer our time to help connect as well. So tell us about that.
Well, all these programs need volunteers, as you might guess. But I also encourage people to start close to home on this one. So what I mean by that is you might have friends who have aging parents, and you have relationships with those parents too. You might have known them from the time you were a kid even. And I've started doing this now, connecting with a couple of my friends' parents on a regular basis on the phone. And what's great about that is you become a different voice. So, it's not the same person calling them all the time. You also give your friends a bit of a break sometimes. And I've loved these connections with my friends' parents, and it's really grown that connection during this time. So are there neighbors that maybe you could phone? Are your friends' parents? And then, of course, all of these programs in the community need our support. One of the things that I feel strongly about is we talk about it takes a village to raise a child, but it also takes a village to care for the vulnerable in our communities and our aging relatives. And we're that village to each other. So there's real opportunity during COVID to step up into that.
Amy, thank you always for your inspirational words. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
You will find a list of the resources we discussed today on the show on our social channels. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.